This is a presentation on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Ps. This presentation is brought to you by Luis Gomez and
Hunter Kiesler. The themes that we have chose to represent the novel are emasculation and sexuality, the combine, man, machine, and nature, and sanity versus insanity.
The first theme is emasculation and sexuality. Nurse Ratched uses the power of the ward to emasculate the men and strip them of their freedom.
Maybe not you, buddy, but the rest are even scared to open up and laugh. You know, that's the first thing that got me about this place, that there wasn't anybody laughing. This shows Nurse Ratched's power over the ward and how the patients don't feel comfortable among themselves.
Another example is Harding's lack of confidence in his sexuality. He admitted himself into the hospital, feeling inferior to the rest of society. Another quote.
No, he isn't extraordinary. He is simply a man and no more, and is subject to all the fears and all the cowardice and all the timidity that any other man is subject to. Given a few more days, I have a very strong feeling that he will prove this. This quote shows that Nurse Ratched is deliberately trying to emasculate McMurphy in front of the other patients. Is this the usual procedure for these group therapy shindigs? Bunch of chickens at a pecking party?
This shows how Nurse Ratched uses the patients against themselves to take away their own power. We have weeks, she says. She stands up looking more pleased with herself than I've seen her since McMurphy came to trouble her a week ago. We have weeks or months or even years if need be. Keep in mind that McMurphy is committed. The length of time he spends in this hospital is entirely up to us.
This quote shows that Nurse Ratched has the power to emasculate McMurphy or any other patient on the ward.
A final example would be how Nurse Ratched uses Billy Bibbit's own mother as a tool against him. She threatens to tell his mother things when she feels the need to put him back in line. This eventually leads to Billy's suicide.
The second theme is the combine, man, machine, and nature. The combine is what Bromden calls society at large. It exists to oppress the people within it. The ward is a factory for the combine, made to reset the people's behavior into the correct behavior. It came from the chief's history of his ancestors' land being taken from them. The combine caused the chief to lose his human nature. He becomes what other people believe to be deaf and dumb. The chief cleans the ward on a schedule like a robot. He existed on the ward only to complete tasks. This leads people to believe that the ward functions to ground down patients into mindless drones, disconnected from themselves and nature.
The other two, John and the woman, are just standing. Not a one of the three acts like they heard a thing I said. In fact, they're all looking off from me like they'd assumed I wasn't there at all.
This quote shows that Chief Bromden has been neglected and ignored all his life.
Let's go, Chief, he says. Let's get up and get to your duties. I don't move. The bucket rocks on my arm. I don't make a sign I heard. He's trying to trick me. He asks me to get up again, and when I don't move, he rolls his eyes up to the ceiling and sighs, reaches down and takes my collar and tugs a little, and I stand up.
This quote shows how the combine forced the chief to continue to act deaf and dumb. Nurse Ratched, being a part of the combine, keeps everything in the ward on a strict schedule. Oh yes, the so-called music. Yes, I suppose we do hear it if we concentrate, but then one can hear one's own heartbeat too, if one concentrates hard enough.
This quote shows how the patients have gotten used to the ward's repeated schedule over time. Another important aspect of the combine is the fog, often encountered by the chief. This fog can be seen as the chief's defense mechanism as to when things go wrong. And the last theme is sanity versus insanity. Throughout the novel, Ken Ps makes a deliberate point of challenging the reader to ask themselves the true meaning of sanity. The question of sanity is brought upon by McMurphy's entry to the ward. He is a likable gambler, and he may have faked his psychosis to get into the ward from a work camp. Nurse Ratched has suspicion over McMurphy not being insane, but regardless, she has to treat him as such in order to exercise her control over him.
The ward is meant to help cure those who are insane, but instead it makes the patients feel inferior, making the reader question if they were ever insane to begin with.
An example of the ward's effect on the men's sanity is when Cheswick drowned himself. He had found himself in such a predicament, he thought he had no other option.
Bromden pretended to be deaf and dumb in the ward for years. Despite the hallucinatory fog, the events that he recalls seem to be lucid and clear and appear to be sane. The fog was brought on by the ward and the world around him, not brought on by himself.
The final example of this theme would be the lobotomy of McMurphy. The patients stand around him in disbelief. After reading the novel, readers grow sympathy for the characters and begin to question, is it the ward that is actually insane? Thank you for watching our presentation. Here are some links to our photos. Thank you.